All right, we're going to do at least a couple things today. We're going to finish up the program we were working on, so hopefully you've got that up. I went through it this morning, and I've changed a couple things. Basically, there were mistakes I made, so I'll run over those with you. One thing I did was I just set the total employees to 1, just so you wouldn't have to be entering 5 employees all the time. You don't have to do that, but it just makes it much easier when you're running it. Of course, if you were testing it for real, you would want to put another number other than 1 in there, but that's fine. All right, so again, today we're going to work on the max non-OT and the OT rate stuff. And I'm looking through here. I want to see if there's anything that I missed. I know that in a couple of these things, like in the one that, maybe it was because it was the end of the class, I don't know. But this was wrong. This in the is union, that should have been not on both of these. So if you don't have it as not, it takes anything. Okay, so you don't want that. You want the not sign before the union string here and the union string here. It's line 126 for me. Yours might be a different line number. Okay. All right. That said, let's see. I changed the error message on here. So instead of saying input hours between, it said you must put input and hours between, just to make it, so if you make a mistake, you kind of know. You don't have to do this. You're not turning it in anyway, but I'm just telling you some of the changes that I made. And I realized that on here, on mine, I did copy and paste from here to here. So here I had all these said hours instead of rate, and they should all say rate. Yours might have been correct to begin with, which is totally fine. So with where we left off last time, yesterday, is now we're going to try to run this gross pay routine. All right, so we need calculate gross pay, and we're going to pass in hours worked and hourly rate. Okay, so I'm going to just copy that down. And what is it doing? It's going to return a double. So down here, down at the very bottom, I think you already know this. It doesn't have to be in the right order here. You can put stuff basically in any order, but to me, when I'm trying to see where stuff is, it makes sense to put it in the order in which stuff is called or whatever. So public, static, and this was a double. And you know what? I don't want to have to type that much. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put this as a double. And it's HW for hours worked, and this is a double, and it's HR for hourly rate. It's just like with other languages that we've worked with. You could call it the same thing, but you don't have to call it the same thing. Type of an idea. I don't know why that parenthesis is there. Oh, it's because it came from over here. There we go. All right. So make sure I'm not missing anything here, and I don't think I am. So we're going to be returning a gross pay. That should make sense to everybody. So I just created a local variable here, and I just called it GP for gross pay. So double GP equals 0.0, and eventually I'm going to return GP. Now all my errors have gone away. Okay. So what do I want to check for? By this time, I should know there should be a valid hours worked and a valid hourly rate. Would you agree with that? Because we checked those both up above. So I'll put a comment here that says check for no overtime worked. And that's pretty simple. That's if the hours worked is less than or equal to max non-OT. Again, that means they worked 40 or less hours, so they're not entitled to any overtime. That should make sense to both of you. So the gross pay is just equal to the hours worked times the hourly rate. Boom. That's pretty simple. Hopefully at least, and pretty straightforward. All right. Now, what I do next depends on how technical you want to be. I'm going to put this in as one calculation. If you find that too hard, you could break it up into a series of calculations and probably add another variable or two, but I just did it like this. So else. And gross pay equals, and I put this over multiple lines so I could be able to go over it, max non-OT times the rate, hourly rate, So that's their 40 hours. Does that make sense to both of you? That's their 40 hours. So that's their straight time, whatever you want to call it. Plus the number of hours they worked. And actually, I had two of them here. Whoops. The number of hours, come on. Hours worked. There we go. Minus 40, or max non-OT. All right, and I want to take that times the rate, the rate times the overtime rate. All right, and that shouldn't be rate, that should be hourly rate. All right, let me see if I can clean this up just a tad here. There, I'll just put it on one line. Maybe that's easier to read. I don't know. So what do I have here? That worked, that worked, that worked. And I would need one more paren. There we go. Semicolon expected. Okay, that's one. That's one. This one should be surrounding everything. Got the one there. I've got this one. I think now there's one too many. There we go. Now my question for you, and I asked, is there anything in there that doesn't make sense? You've done gross pays before in other languages. You've done basically this program in other languages. So now, can you think of, there's a line that should be put in where the cursor is. Can you think of what that line is? So I'll hit enter, but there should be a line that goes right there. Any idea what that might be? What's one thing that we're doing with this? If we had 5 employees, what's one thing we're doing with all 5 employees? All right. So our total gross pay, which was that variable that we created, that global one up on top. All right. And then the only thing that's left is to write this one. Now I copied this from yesterday, just so you know. But so now, no errors there. Good. So we should be able to call display all, and we should be able to pass all that stuff in. Okay, so I'm just going to grab this. I'm going to cut it way down because that's too much to type. So I'm going to come down to the bottom. And I'm going to do a public static. This is a void because there's nothing in here that we're, all right, returning. So we'll have string, and I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to try to make this easier on myself. I'm going to say FN for first name. I think we made middle initial a string also. String, middle initial, string, last name, int age, Boolean is union, double hours worked, double hourly rate, and finally I'll just move this up to this line here, or try to. Double gross pay, okay? Which means I'm going to have to change all these, and that's okay. FN, MI, LN, A, IU, HW, HR, GP, and I don't have my beginning curly brace right there. That's why I'm getting that error. X, and I need my ending curly brace down here. And now I should be able to take these lines that are comment and uncomment them. There, and all of these should be able to go to now. Oops. Right there. Delete. Okay, well, I'm getting this error because I've never defined str, right? So I'm just going to come in here and say string str equals. So that should work. We'll see in a minute. Oh, and guess what? Look on the screen, please. I don't have to do this one now, right? I created that decimal format for these. So let's add our decimal patterns here. So this will be dot, I'm sorry, the way you do this is you say the name of the pattern. So pattern 2 dot format for the hours worked, and then do the same thing, pattern 2 dot format for the hourly rate. So we got the hours worked and the hourly rate, and then pattern 1, because we want the $, dot format for the gross pay. And we'll run it in just a minute, just to make sure that it still works. I'm going to change it to 2. I moved that to 1. Well, you can't do a total when a totaling when you've got 2 employees. I'll change it to 2 or 3, something like that. But this would be the time then that you would want to go back and rerun every single method, try to break it, right? Isn't that's really the goal of testing, is to break your code. If you're like, well, I tried for 2 hours and I couldn't break it, that's pretty darn well written code. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying, yeah, this is really well written. No. All right. It's okay. But again, it's got 20 warnings and 9 typos. Now, it gives typos because it's got a really very limited spell check in here, just so you know that. And Android Studio isn't really any better. Again, just so you're aware of that. So I'll give you a second when you both say you're done. I'm going to go up and change my total number of employees. You can leave it at 5. I'm going to change mine to 3. Then I'm going to run the program. Now, this, you just don't look up or anything, but just please listen. What I'm going to try to do this weekend, I don't know if I'm going to have time to do it or not, but what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to go back and rewrite this program. Java, like C#, although in C# we didn't use it much, you may remember this was during our quarantine time, that we talked a little bit about an array list. And that's an array, but it can grow and it can shrink. Java has an array list also. And I'd like to rewrite this with an array list of like employee objects and see if I've got time to do that. I hope so. If I forget to do it or I don't have time this weekend, Monday is lab. They're going to have a lab for the morning class, so maybe I'll have time to do it then. Do you have all this? No? Okay. Please get the $sign out of there too, otherwise you can have 2 of them. Sorry about that. Questions on any of this? Okay. So I'm just going to quickly go back and change this. No, Control Home. So I'm going to change my number of employees to 3, so I can add 3 of them up. Okay. Questions? So I'm gonna run this, and if you didn't get a chance to copy everything and you need it, I'll bring it back in a second. Okay. All right. So let's take a look, and I'm gonna try to run through some of the error checking. So I'm gonna leave. The only thing we're checking for the first name, remember, is blank. So that's catching it. See that? Every time I keep, it's not taking anything. So Jeff, same thing with the middle initial. The only thing I'm checking is if it's blank, so that's working. P, last name, that's working. All right, age, I want to put in something that's under 18, so I'll say 17. I get my new and improved error message, you must enter. Then I want 100, same error message, so I'll say 33, takes that. Enter union status. Now before, yesterday when we ran this, I put in true, but I spelled true wrong. I spelled in 2URE, and it took it because I had the wrong check in there. But now, it just tells you to put it in again. I guess I could have changed that error message also. But I'll put false. Hours worked, I'll put a negative number in there. Yeah, it's not taking that. I'll put a number in that's more than 84. It's not taking that. So I'm going to put in something with overtime. So 50. And hourly rate, I'll put in a negative number. Doesn't take that. I'll put in a number more than 99.99. It doesn't take that. Well, I don't know what happened. I hit enter twice, so I think I broke the program. That was real nice. Try it again. So Jeffrey, P, Scott, sure, 64, false. We'll say 50, and we'll say 20. All right, now notice I did get the overtime, because if it was 50 times 20 without the overtime, it would have been 1,000, right? So 10 hours, for 10 of those hours, I got time and a half. All right, hopefully that's the right calculation. I think it is. All right, so I've got that, and up here, don't know why. I thought I changed it, so it was going to call that, but, oh, and this display total gross, we've got to do that yet. See that? All right, so what is wrong with this? Change that to 3. Total imps. I don't know what's wrong. We need to do the display total gross at the bottom. So sorry about that. So if you had that, if you don't have that, put that after your for loop. Make a call to display total gross. All right. If you don't have that right now, right underneath your for loop with the display all under the curly brace, so between the two curly braces, make a call to display total gross, because that's what we're about to do. So before I do that, if you look up on the screen, please, this may have been what the problem was. I did a system.out.println. I'm going to do a J option pane here. So I'll do a J option pane dot show message dialog, and you need to put null in front of that, comma. So that should work now. So I changed this line at the bottom of display all right there. All right. There may be a way, because you're going to see the same thing in Android Studio. There may be a way. These are hints right here to show you what that is. To turn that off, I don't know what it is. So you can check that. There may be a way to turn that off. I don't know. So finally, we will need our public static void display total gross, which is, again, it's the one I forgot. And it should be really short. Where am I? We'll just write it from here. So I'm just going to say here, J option pane dot show message dialog. Let's give it some smarts. So we'll say null first, comma. Then there were a total of tote emps employees, and we'll put a \n in here, and we'll say the total payroll was, and we'll put in our pattern, pattern1 dot format tote gross pay. Now, hopefully I didn't make any mistakes in here. So this should come up, and it should say something like there were a total of 3 employees. The total payroll was $5,600 or something like that. Make sense? We could run statistics on this if we wanted to. So in other words, we could find out what employee made the most money, the least. We could do an average. We could do all sorts of different stuff with this, if indeed that's what we wanted to do. All right. Any questions on any of the code or any of the logic? I'll leave it up there for a couple minutes, but any questions? So let me know when you got it, when you're up to that. Then we're going to go back and we're going to rewrite it like you'd write a Java program. It's going to be different because it's going to be stuff you haven't done before. Are you all caught up, Keegan? Are you caught up, Angie? Okay, good. So just to make sure, because I want to make sure I didn't break anything. So I'm going to do one final file, save all, and try to run it again and see if there's any errors. Jeffrey P. Scott 64 false 5020. That all looks correct as far as I can tell. All right, here's my second employee. We could have even done a thing there where we used LCV. So we could have had it say enter second employee, enter first employee. We could have done something like that. Or enter employee number. We could have put the employee if we wanted to do that. It's not that big a thing. Let's say true for her. And let's say she worked 40 hours and 40 bucks an hour. That's correct. And finally, we'll take Taylor, my daughter. And she's 30. And her union status, she's false. And let's say she worked 80 hours and she makes 30 bucks an hour. All right, so now 30 plus the 1100 and whatever the other was, plus 1600. So 30 and 1100 would be 4100 and 1600. I think like 5700 should be the total. There were a total of 3 employees. Their total payroll, that should be THEIR, but you get the idea, right? All right. So I can change that so it's spelled correctly. IR. So you both have that now, correct? All right. Let's do this. You'll see why I'm doing this in just a minute, okay? Let's literally start with everything between this curly brace right here and the bottom one, everything. So everything that's in here, let's copy all of it. You'll see why in just a second. So not including the last curly brace and not including anything from there on up. Does that make sense? So not the last curly brace and not from this my line 7 on up. All that makes sense? Just copy it to the clipboard. All right. Then let's do a file, close project. That we don't, otherwise we'd be replicating a lot of code. That's why. So let's go into a new project. You know this by now. Just hit click next, click next. This one we'll call Payroll 05. All right. And we will do just what we've been doing. In other words, we'll come in here, right mouse click on source, new, package, com.example. Then we will right mouse click on that, new Java class. We will choose Payroll 05. All right. Now come in and just paste everything you just had in there, paste it all back in. So why would I waste your time doing that? Let's talk arrays for a minute. You understand? Now, I don't even want to implement this because it could be really ugly. We'll talk eventually about using objects, but when you come in here, we could make an array, so we could do this. All right. So we could come in here and we could make arrays of each one of these. So we could have an array of size totems. In fact, I'm not even gonna get these initializations in here. I'm not gonna do this. All right. So I'm gonna get a bunch of errors, but don't worry about it. So the way you do this here is you go string bracket bracket first name equals, and then I'd say new string, and I'd give it a size. So like tote emps. See that? So that would create a string array where I could put in 3 first names. Does that make sense to you? All right. So I'm going to do that for each one of these. That's why I said I'm going to get errors throughout the program now, but it's okay. And of course that doesn't go there. It goes on the end. All right. I don't know if I've ever made a byte array, but that's fine. All I'm trying to show you is you can make, oops, you can make arrays of any data type. Okay. Copy these. All right. Like I said, I think this will go a lot faster doing it like this. All right. My question is, do you all get this? All right. So what we're doing is rather than having an object where we would have 5 of those, so we'd have 5 of each, put this thing in as a collection and have 5 of those. Now we're going to have 5 different first names in one array, 5 different middle initials in another array. So this will work, but it's kind of a roundabout way of doing it, for lack of better words. All right.
I have a question. I'm getting an error on my.
Okay.
When we did the string array, first name and new string total s, I'm getting an error on code apps. It was saying it's a
Is this what?
Did you change?
No, that might have. Oh, yeah, I bet you that was a double originally. Like I said, I found a couple things in here. Just make it an int and that should fix it. Yeah. Because you can't have half of an employee.
Right.
You can have an employee that works half time, but technically you can't have half an employee.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Like I said, when I went through it this morning, there were a few things that I changed. I tried telling you all of them. Evidently, I missed at least one. All right. So now none of this is going to work, right? So what do we want? Well, what we want here is first name LCV right here. So I'm going to put LCV in front of all these. I'm going to get errors as I do this, but I'm just going to work my way down on it, okay? I won't need one there. I won't need one there. Then true, I'll need one here. And I'll need one here. And here. And here. And here. And here. 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 And here. All right. And you'll notice that right now, the only one I'm getting the mistakes on is that one. Look on the screen if you would. I'm not getting any mistakes on these because I'm not passing anything in. So hopefully these will still work. And somebody tell me, I know LCV stands for loop control variable, but in English, what is the LCV? What is it? What is this? For each one of these, what is it? It's the array element. So it's the first one, the second one, or whatever. So we shouldn't have to change those. Now, all of these should still work. I could be wrong, but I think all of them will still work. All right. The one we have to change then is we have to go down to this one. All right. Why? It's not giving us an error, but when you look here, we're passing in for calculate, oh, it's the calculate gross pay. We're passing these two in, so where's our calculate gross pay? All right, we're passing in those two doubles. All right, and so what doesn't it like there? Let's see what it says here. Required type, double, provided, double. That might be LCV here. That was it. All right, see that? Add the LCV onto that one. And it's not a big thing. What I'm telling you right now, I'm going to show you something. Don't change it. You don't have to. But it's not a big thing. Would you agree that the way this is set up, each one of these is 5 in length? Would you agree with that? Well, it's totally fine to say totems, and that's the way a lot of people do it. The way some people do it is I can grab any one of these arrays. So I can grab first name because I know there's 5 elements in it, and I could have said here, the name of the array. I'm going to change it back. I don't like doing it like this. First name dot length. See that? That would just say how many elements are in the array. So that would have worked as well. Now, I'm going to save it and take it for a spin. I have no idea if it's going to work or not, to be honest with you. I didn't try this before. I'm not going to run the tests on it because I've already run those things. Those should still work. So, I mean, you hit enter, I still get first name, etc. So, I don't know what your middle initial is. What is it? T. Okay. And I don't know what your age is, but I'll just put that in. I don't know what it is. Let's say false. Let's say you worked 50 hours and you make 30 bucks an hour. It did it, and it gave you your overtime. So that looks right. I don't know what your middle initial is. J. And I don't know what your age is. I'm just putting that in. I don't care. Not to be mean, but I don't care. All right. And the hours, let's say you worked 55 hours and you make 60 bucks an hour. So you got that. That should be, because otherwise it would have been 3,300. So it looks like you got 450 in overtime. And then I'll put myself in. And I'll just say I worked 10 hours. And oops, I did that wrong. True. I'll say 10 and 10. And all that's in there. All right. So 3 employees. That doesn't look right because it says 5,500. There's a mistake in there. So that would have to be fixed. So let's take a quick look. The point is, what did we spend? 2 minutes on this? And we converted a program without arrays into one with arrays. All right. Let's see. Total gross. So it is in the calculate gross pay. Okay. I don't know what'd be wrong with that though. During gross pay, that should be okay. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'll run it one last time. I'm going to make this real easy. Okay, that's right. That's right. It was right. There were a total of 3 employees and 3, because I just did 10 times 10 3 times. So it works. All right. Now, there's a lot more we could do with arrays. But like I said, I think to try to make it easier, what I'll try to do is make this more object-oriented over the weekend and write something with array lists, because the syntax for it is almost identical to C#, but it's a little quirky. The difference between an array and an array list is with an array list, it can grow and shrink. An array that array's got, whether I put stuff in it or not, it's got 3 or 5 elements or whatever we said. But an array list, you can start with nothing and add as many as you want. You can remove things from there, add new things, change things, kind of CRUD operations like we talked about before. So, all right, so I'm going to just do one last file, save all, and I'm going to close this project, and as you guessed, we're going to start another one. This will be the first true Java-like program that we're doing. All right, because this one, like I said, I don't think you're going to find it hard, but it's going to look different from what we've done in the past with other languages. All right, so I'm going to do another new project. Next. As you might guess, it'll be Payroll 6 or 06. All right, and I'm doing the same thing that I've been doing. So I made my com.example, my package, and in my package I'm going to make my Java class, and I'm going to call this one Payroll 6. All right. Now the first thing that's going to change on here, I'll give you a second to catch back up. First thing that's going to change, we're not going to have a main in this file. We're going to create a different file, and that file will have a main in it. Okay? So this file is just going to be our payroll stuff, period. And like I said, we're going to do it differently, yet a lot of it will be very similar to what we've already done. Okay? So to try to make this easier for you and for me, let's go back to the program that we just did, which was that Payroll 5? All right, and I'm going to go into source, into com example, and I'm going to open this up. Yes, with Notepad. I want to grab all of these variables. Okay. I'm not sure I'm going to use every single thing that's in there, but I think I am. So I'm going to, do you understand what I just did? I went back into the last program and I'm grabbing all the global variables and the global constants. Okay. So come back into here. And as you might guess, just right at the top, I'm going to paste those in. Now, notice again, I've already shown you this, but if you look on the screen, these are red. That's always a sign. You put your mouse over it. Typically, it's going to tell you if you want to import the class, either do an Alt-Enter or an Alt-Shift-Enter. If it's the first time, it's Alt-Shift-Enter. Boom, it adds it. Okay? So I've already got all this stuff done. Now, as of right now, it looks absolutely no different from what we've done so far. I think you'd agree with that. There's no differences. We're going to make differences right now. All right? So we've created our global constants. We've created our global variables, but we're going to add some more global variables. But we're going to put a different comment there, and we're going to say create class variables. They will be global, but they're going to represent the class. Okay? Just so you know that. If you say, I don't know what it means, we're going to be going over that in just a minute. But I'm adding some room just so I can put these in here. All right. So I'm going to make these private. And you'll know, again, we'll go over all this. So private, string, first name. When you set up class variables, do not initialize them. Do not. Let's forget the middle initial. Let's just keep it easy on ourselves. Okay, so we'll just have a first name and a last name. That's totally fine. I'm just going to cut down a bunch of stuff. I don't think we need to go over how to validate that it's Boolean or how to validate that it's a double. You understand what I'm saying? Because we've already done that. So let's keep this simple. Let's put a first name, a last name. Let's put a double in here for hours. Let's put another double in here for rate. And let's put one last double in here for gross. We could add all of that stuff Are you with me? We could add the is union and all that other stuff, but I want to get going. I don't want to sit there and just basically do a lot of the same validation that we've already done. Okay, so that's good. And where are we here? 1, 2. Okay, so now I'm going to come in here, and before I do anything else, tell both of you, please tell me when you got to this point. Okay. This isn't going to be as long a program as what we had before, but I think it's going to do a decent job of starting to get you into object-oriented. You got everything? Okay. So go ahead and do a file save. Don't run it. It won't run anyway. There's no main. So just do a file, save all. Then come over your COM example again, right here. Right mouse click on your COM example, choose new Java class. And we're going to call this one Payroll, 06 driver, because it's going to have our main in it. So I call this Payroll 06 driver. The driver itself is only going to be about, we're going to have to type in about 10 lines of code. Okay. All right, so we've got that. I don't believe that we're not going to need any import statements, but what we're going to do in here is we're going to create a bunch of payroll objects. Okay, so this is called Payroll 06 driver. The other one, we want to create a bunch of Payroll 6 objects. All right, so we'll create 3 of them. One that's Jeff, one that's Keegan, and one that's Angie. All right, so we'll come in here and let's create those. So we'll say here, notice when I type in payroll, it recognizes the Payroll 06. Can you see that? Look on the screen. The IntelliSense realizes and recognizes that. So it's going to be a Payroll 6 object, and we'll call the first one. Let's make that Angie. Let's do them in alphabetic order. All right, and we'll say equals new Payroll 06. If you get errors, don't worry about it. We're not done with the other program yet. All right, the other file. And we'll even do we'll just print it out here. Do a system.out.println of Angie. All right, so am I getting that? Oh, it says cannot resolve symbol print line. It will be. Don't worry about it. It'll be fixed. All right, so then let's create another one. We'll call that one Keegan, and it'll also be a new payroll. You're going to get a bunch of errors on this one, but don't worry about it, please. All right. And let's see. This one we're going to put in Keegan, which is going to represent the first name, Young, which is going to represent the last name. And what else did we have in here? We had a first name, a last name, an hours, and a rate. We don't put in the gross because that's what we're going to calculate the program. All right, we'll say Keegan makes $55 an hour, and he worked 60 hours. Okay, we will even account for overtime. We'll do all that stuff. So we've got that, and then we'll do a system.out.println of Keegan. Again, we're going to get errors in here. They'll all be resolved. All right, finally, we'll do a payroll 06, and it'll be me, equals new payroll. And I'm going to do a couple things here. I'm going to do a new payroll 6, and I'm going to immediately print it out. Again, I will get those errors, but don't worry about it. .out.println of Jeff. All right. Now I'm going to come in and make some changes to Angie and make some changes to me. Why? Because when we first print this out, your name is going to be first name unknown, last name unknown, and so is mine. Because we haven't set the first name yet. Okay, so we're going to do that. So I'm going to say Angie dot set first name. Again, you're going to get a bunch of errors here to Angie. Angie dot set last name to, whoops, to Shelton. I think that's how you spell it. Okay, like it sounds, I guess. Angie dot set, what was the first one? I think, which one was first? Hours. Set hours. It really wouldn't matter. We could do it either order. We'll say that you worked, I don't know, 60 hours and Angie dot set rate, and we'll say that you make $60 an hour. That'd be the same as Keegan. So let's make you 61. There you go. And then finally, we'll do the same kind of thing with me. But after we do these changes, we're going to print you out again. So we will print out Angie. And then I'm just going to copy all these, but I'm going to use them on Jeff, and I'll put in different numbers. So, oops. So this will be set first name to Jeff, set last name to Scott. Let's do a non-overtime one, so it'll say I work 30 hours, and I make $30 an hour, and we'll print out Jeff. The numbers that you put in here aren't that important, just so you know. All right, but I do want to check, I wanted to check the overtime, etc. So I think, yeah, the only other thing that's left is the curly brace. That's everything from line 1. And if you get those errors, don't worry. They will be fixed. This next program is not that long. It'll be long enough that we'll go to here and then we'll take a break. All right. As we go and make changes in the other file, these errors are going to go away. Yeah. Yeah, you can. Oh, okay. So, this morning, a guy was Adam was working in here, and I'd never seen this before. He doesn't even know what he hit. He had his whole interface built, and he had all of his code. He said he hit two keys at the same time or something. All of a sudden, all he had was a blank form on his screen. And he's like, what did I do? And I said, if I knew, I would tell you. But I said, not watching it, I can't tell you what you did. So.
How come on the second set of these, where like on the first one, how we had Angie.set first name?
Yeah.
On the second one, how come we don't have to change that to your name? Where it says Angie.set first name, wouldn't we have to change that to?
Right here?
Yeah, like on the bottom one, wouldn't we have to change that to
I did.
Set first name?
You're right. Thank you. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that would be kind of, yeah, then your name would now be Jeff Scott. So I don't think you want that. I don't wish that on anybody. I maybe have said this to you before. My wife has already said there are one too many Jeff Scotts in this world. So yeah, I will print it out during the break. Okay. In fact, it is almost 1. Why don't we just take a break right now? Okay. And they'll give you a chance to catch back up. Let's see. I think to try to make it even easier for you. I'm still, like I told you, I'm still moving some stuff over from one machine to the other here. I didn't realize they have not even, on this machine, they have not given me Office. So that's been a real pain in the butt. Okay, do that. Okay, Chad sent me a message. We can stay in here all this week, of course, all next week. Okay. I don't actually know. I was just told somebody in his universe. It could be him. I don't really know. I've learned to not ask questions around here with stuff like, seriously, just I'm best off. People say, "Oh, I just play stupid." No, I can be stupid. That's fine. But I'm not going to be surprised if it's him, because he just said, I don't know if you're still in the classroom in the afternoon whenever I'm not there, but I just wanted you to know we won't be in the classroom until at least Friday the 15th. So they may be back here next Friday. All right. But I think he's going to try to set his up so that they're in here 1 day a week. That's what he told me. And he said maximum of 2 if they're testing. And that's nice because then we go in there. And I think Keegan will tell you it's not terrible, but I've got a little projector that I put on the wall. And I mean, you can read it, but if we're doing code like this, it's much easier to do it the other way. So I'm going to go and grab a flash drive and just put it on the flash drive and give you the flash drive.